She destroyed her own life for a man who never loved her. Here's why. What is the exact price of a human soul? For a woman named Sarah, the cost was exactly 7 years of her youth, $450,000 in cash, and her entire sense of reality. She didn't lose it to a professional scammer or a masked thief. She gave it away, piece by piece, to a man who never actually loved her. Most people watching this right now think they are too smart to let this happen. They believe they are too self-aware to be manipulated. But today's deep dive on Yankee Psyche proves that the more successful you are, the easier it is for a predator to turn your strengths against you. This is the psychological autopsy of how a high-achieving architect systematically dismantled her own life for a man who didn't even care enough to learn her middle name. Stick with us until the very end, because we aren't just telling a story. We are going to reveal the 3 invisible psychological traps that kept her paralyzed. And we will show you the exact moment the karma finally arrived to collect its debt. If you have ever felt like you were the only one fighting for a relationship while the other person was quietly destroying you, this story was written for you. Our story begins with Sarah. In the world of high-stakes architecture, Sarah was a rising star. She was meticulous, driven, and possessed a golden reputation. She was the kind of person who could see the structural flaws in a skyscraper from a mile away, yet she was completely blind to the rot in her own living room. Then she met Marcus. To the outside world, Marcus was the soulmate of a lifetime, a man who claimed to support her empire while secretly plotting to replace her. This is a classic, textbook example of the narcissistic love cycle. The descent didn't happen all at once. It started with a shocking confession hidden behind small favors. First, it was a few $1,000s to cover a supposed business emergency. Then, it was Sarah moving to a new city, leaving her entire support system behind for Marcus's dream job, a job that we now know didn't actually exist. By year 5, Sarah was no longer the architect her colleagues recognized. She was working 60 hours a week in retail and freelance design just to pay off Marcus's secret gambling debts and his mounting credit card bills. While she was sacrificing her sleep and her sanity, he was out networking, which was really just a cover for guiltless infidelity. Sarah was stuck in a tragic pattern of emotional storytelling, convinced that if she just worked a little harder or gave a little more, she could save him. But at Yankee Psyche, we explore what really drives people, and the truth behind Marcus's actions was purely predatory. To understand why a woman as brilliant as Sarah destroyed her life, we have to look at the hidden patterns of the human mind. The first psychological anchor was the sunk cost fallacy. Sarah didn't just love Marcus. She had invested 7 years and her entire life savings into his potential. When you spend nearly a decade building an empire for someone else, your brain finds it physically painful to admit it was all for nothing. This is why good people make terrible decisions. They feel that if they leave now, all that previous pain was in vain, so they stay to try and make the investment profitable. In reality, they are just throwing good years after bad. The second anchor was the family scapegoat dynamic. To keep Sarah under his total control, Marcus convinced her that her own parents were toxic and jealous of her success. He manufactured conflicts and twisted Sarah's memories until she viewed her support system as her enemies. He isolated her until she had no one else to turn to but him. When you are isolated, your reality is defined entirely by the person standing next to you. You lose the external mirrors that tell you when you are being treated poorly. You begin to accept the unacceptable because there is no one left to say, "This isn't right." Finally, Marcus used intermittent reinforcement. He gave Sarah just enough affection, what we call breadcrumbing, to keep her hooked on the hope of a beautiful future that was always just 6 months away. He would be cruel for weeks, then suddenly bring home flowers and promise that the startup was about to take off. It created a literal chemical addiction to the relationship drama. Her brain was constantly hunting for that next hit of validation, which Marcus withheld like a weapon. As the years rolled on, Sarah's physical health began to fail. The stress of maintaining a lie of a perfect life while working multiple low-tier jobs to support a man who stayed in bed all day began to take its toll. She lost weight, her hair began to thin, and the sharp, analytical mind that had once designed city landmarks was now struggling to calculate how to buy groceries on a maxed-out credit card. Yet every time a friend or a former colleague reached out, Marcus was there to intercept the message, telling Sarah they were just trying to distract her from their mission. This is how the narcissistic love cycle completes its loop, by convincing the victim that their destruction is actually a form of shared sacrifice for a higher goal. But every story on this channel has a turning point where the truth finally comes out. For Sarah, it wasn't a grand, dramatic reveal. It was a single bank statement she found hidden in the back of a shoebox while she was looking for a pair of work shoes she hadn't worn in years. She discovered that Marcus hadn't just been losing her money on bad bets or failed businesses. He had been using her credit and her architectural license to build a legitimate, thriving construction company in another woman's name. This woman, whom he called his business partner, believed Marcus was a self-made millionaire and that Sarah was merely a troubled ex-employee he was helping out of the kindness of his heart. He was building his future empire with Sarah's bricks, using her professional credentials to sign off on projects, but he intended to live in that empire with someone else. He was waiting for the final project to close so he could take the payout and disappear, leaving Sarah with the debt and the legal liability. It was a level of workplace betrayal and personal cruelty that defies logic. But as we say here, karma hits hard. Marcus made one fatal mistake. He forgot that Sarah was an architect. She spent her life studying how structures hold weight, and more importantly, where they are most vulnerable. Once the veil was lifted, Sarah didn't cry, she didn't scream, she went back to her analytical roots. For 3 weeks, she played the role of the dutiful, tired partner while she meticulously gathered every email, every forged signature, and every diverted bank transfer. She performed a deep psychological and financial analysis of his fraud that was so thorough even the most seasoned investigators were stunned. She didn't just go to the police. She contacted the other woman, the business partner. She showed her the truth of who Marcus really was. She showed her the debt, the lies, and the 7 years of wreckage he had left in his wake. In a move of narrative retribution, the two women teamed up. While Marcus was out celebrating his final deal, he returned home to find the locks changed, his bank accounts frozen by a court order, and a stack of legal documents that effectively ended his professional and personal life. He had built his house on a foundation of lies, and Sarah had pulled the central pillar. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Marcus, who had spent years acting without regret, finally faced a hard-hitting karma. He had no savings of his own. He had burned every bridge he ever had. Within months, the man who had lived like a king on Sarah's labor was facing multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. Sarah, on the other hand, began the long process of rebuilding. The life-changing decision to walk away and fight back was the moment she stopped being a victim and started being the author of her own life. She reached out to her parents, showing them the evidence of how she had been manipulated. The reconciliation was slow, but the family scapegoat was finally home. Sarah's story is a haunting reminder that behind every action, there is a reason. Sometimes, the reason is love. Other times, the reason is a predatory pattern of behavior that we are too blind to see until the foundation is already gone. We like to think that we are in control of our lives, but human psychology is a complex web of vulnerabilities. Marcus didn't find a weak woman. He found a strong woman and used her strength against her. He used her loyalty, her work ethic, and her capacity for forgiveness as tools for her own destruction. Every video we create at Yankee Psyche is designed to make you think, question, and understand people on a deeper level. We want to equip you with the knowledge to see these hidden patterns before they take root in your own life. We want you to understand that workplace envy, family conflicts, and relationship drama are often driven by the same psychological triggers. Now, we have a very important question for you, and we want you to be completely honest in the comment section right now. Have you ever been the Sarah in your own life? Have you ever stayed in a situation a job, a friendship, or a marriage, long after your gut told you the truth, simply because you were too afraid to admit you were wrong or that you had wasted your time. Maybe you have witnessed a family conflict where a sibling was chosen over you for decades, or a workplace betrayal where a boss stole your idea and got promoted. Or perhaps you have seen someone else destroy their life for someone who clearly didn't love them. Share your story below. Be specific about the moment you realized things had to change. What was your bank statement in a shoebox moment? Your confession might be the life lesson someone else needs to hear today to keep from destroying their own life. It might be the spark that helps another person see the architecture of betrayal in their own world. We read every comment because we believe that by sharing these real stories, we can uncover the hidden patterns of the human mind together. If you value real stories with deep psychological insight and the hard truths about karma and narrative retribution, subscribe to Yankee Psyche. We are revealing the human mind, one story at a time. We tackle the shocking confessions, the emotional relationship drama, and the workplace betrayals that define our lives. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next deep dive.